Hey, welcome back to Marketing with Empathy. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by the fast moving world of marketing, this episode's probably going to open your eyes into some different ways of looking at your metrics. I'm talking with Erik Huberman, founder and CEO of Hawke Media and the brain behind the new marketing AI tool, Hawke AI. Who is Erik Huberman? Well, he's the owner and founder of Hawke Media. He built his first business at the age of 6, and his entrepreneurial journey has only accelerated since then. Over the years, he's architected many successful ventures, each always focused on this desire to revolutionize an industry and kind of set these new standards. With Hawke Media, his vision was to disrupt the marketing world for the better, and is something he's proud to have achieved. In addition to his core marketing services, Hawke Media introduced Hawke AI, which we're going to be talking about today, which is a cutting edge tool that has helped close to now over 6,000 companies benchmark analytics and improve results. And over the past decade, Hawke Media has driven some pretty impressive results. They've generated nearly $3 billion in gross revenue. They've employed over 900 talented professionals, received 90 different prestigious awards, acquired 12 unique companies, broadening their expertise and offerings, and doing so without incurring debt or raising any outside capital. So today, Hawke Media is recognized as the top performing marketing agency in the U.S., a testament to its unwavering commitment to challenging that status quo. In today's episode, Erik shares why most marketing agencies fall short and how Hawke Media is disrupting that status quo, how Hawke AI helps you instantly identify what's working and what's not in your marketing, which is what I found to be the most eye-opening, how to earn the trust of mom buyers, and why it matters more than ever. So let's dive in and hear how this blend of human insight and machine learning can help your brand grow smarter and faster. Welcome to Marketing with Empathy, the podcast for brands that want to target and engage moms. Moms influence or control 85% of all household purchases, making them a lucrative market to figure out. But many brands struggle to connect with moms through their content. Even if moms aren't your only audience, they're an important audience for so many brands. I'm your host, Sarah Panus, and I have more than 20 years of experience working with brands of all sizes, including Sleep Number, SheFit, American Express, Starbucks, LegalZoom, and lots of bigger, small, and medium-sized brands. So tune in here for ideas that'll get your products and services into the hands of more moms who need them, so your brand can effectively reach more moms and drive those all-important leads and sales. And thanks to your support, this podcast is in the top 5% of all podcasts and a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. So let's hear from today's sponsors and then dive right in to hear how this blend of human insight and machine learning can help your brand grow smarter and faster. Okay, Erik, you talk a lot about disrupting the marketing world for the better. What is it that you think needs to change, and what are you doing at your company at Hawke Media to kind of challenge that status quo?
I had a lot of experience working with agencies. I went to start just advising and consult for a bunch of other brands, and I found that at the time there were 24,000 digital agencies in the United States, and 99% of them had no idea what they were doing. They were terrible at what they did. There's no barrier to entry to start an agency, so there's so many that really are built off a great salesperson that doesn't actually know how to execute marketing. And then the few that are good are basically pushed by nature, by the holding companies, by the private equity firms, as they scale to go up market and ignore all the small and medium businesses out there. And so I was like, why isn't it that there can be a company that's the best at what they do in marketing, but easy to work with? That doesn't have long contracts, high minimums, makes it crazy to try to work with them, but also knows what they're doing. And so even though that shouldn't be such a new idea, that didn't really seem to exist. And that's how we got started, was we're going to be flexible, nimble, cost effective, but the best at what we do. And when I say the best at what we do, the other piece of it that really makes us disruptive is we've always been really tech integrated. And so that manifested as like really leaning into e-commerce and D2C 11 years ago. But then in general, we started investing in marketing tools. We started building our own marketing tools and really using technology, because I saw pretty quickly that creative became iterative. So it wasn't about nailing the best creative anymore, because you could test a lot of things, but technology was really where brands were winning, and really having the best data, the best speed to market, the best amount of iteration, all those things were super important. and wanted to make sure that we were tech forward in that sense. And so now we actually invest in a piece of technology about once a month out of a venture fund while we integrate it into Hawke Media and are always looking for where's the most innovative part of the industry, which obviously right now has a lot to do with AI. But in general, that's always been a part of our ethos.
Got it. And we're going to be getting into your AI tool, Hawke AI. But before I dig into that, just kind of an overview, what types of clients do you work with generally?
We're pretty agnostic. I mean, obviously, we're talking about mom focused companies here. We launched the SNU, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. We've done a lot in that space, but it's a lot of probably 65% consumer brands, 35% B2B. It's CPG, it's financial services, it's hospitality, it's software companies. Really, what we found was, again, like it is such a crazy underserved market in terms of growth stage companies that just want a great partner. The world is kind of our oyster, and the ability to just be good at leveraging the platforms for whatever the goal might be. So having an
Mhm.
expert in Google search marketing that can leverage that for whatever the goals are for the company is really where the skill sets come in. And what we found was focusing on that vertical expertise on the marketing platform, not on the industry, was the
Mhm.
most bang for your buck. Because what I found is when you have industry focused marketers, they end up becoming very myopic. They do the same strategy all the time because it worked once, and over the years it works for a little while, and then it starts to fall off, and they become another one of those 99% that really didn't keep up with what's working. So by nature, because my team works with lots of different industries, it forces an innate critical thinking function that they have to think about, like, how does this affect that customer, and what do we need to know to discover the success for this company versus just replaying the same playbook.
Okay, well, then let's dig into your new AI tool. AI is the hot topic of the day, right? And your new tool is called Hawke AI. In terms of the results, can you give us some examples of the types of data that it can compare?
It's every KPI on every sort of performance marketing channel you can think of. So it's, TikTok, Meta, Google, Klaviyo, your Google Analytics data, your Shopify data, and it just goes in and looks at all the different reports they have and all the different KPIs they have and goes, this is how you compare to your industry or to the market at large on all of these. And then we have a flagging system that it flags where your top performance is and where your worst performance is. The idea is sort of a wins and losses. Like, here's where you're outperforming the market and crushing it, and here's where you need some help. So what we found is for agencies, you can now show people, here's how we're outperforming the rest of your industry, and actually just be like, we're better. Like, we are doing better for you than most people. And you can show that
Mhm.
objectively. Vice versa, the losses is not meant to be a scolding challenge. It's supposed to be point you where your opportunities are. And hey, these are all the things you're missing on. If you fix these, here's how much that quantifies that. This is where a CMO still comes into play, where it's like you need to decide how much to double down on the places you're winning. Like, if your click through rate and conversion rates are crushing it on Meta, you might want to just spend more money there because it's working. So it's not always about chasing the bad things. Like, you hear this in the investing side, like spending time on your winners is also a good strategy, not just triaging your losers, but deciding what is causing those wins and losses so that you know how to reallocate your strategy, your budget, your time is a really big part of it.
And this is a great example, the discussion around AI right now of taking people's jobs. I mean, as you just explained this, yes, it fills some analytical roles, but the
Yeah.
combination of people, you still need the people and the brain power and the leaders
Yeah.
to analyze and assess and decide what you'd want to do with the information you're getting. So you still need the combo of the two working together.
Yeah, we've gone through phases where everyone's jobs are going to be gone over for many, many times. Every couple decades, there's something that's going to take out everyone's jobs. I mean, when Adobe Photoshop came out, they said it was the end of the art director. When
Mhm.
industrialization came out, they said it was the end of the farmer. Like, there's always a lot of people wanting to scream about how, like, the worst case scenario of this biz, but like, it's not how human adoption works. Like, there are going to be people that don't keep up, and what is it? The only constant is change. Like, you've got to adapt. Like, there's definitely changes in the job, but the idea that all jobs are going away, I still think is pretty crazy.
What problems does it solve, and who would be the ideal user of Hawk AI?
So I started building it 10 years ago when I discovered AI was coming. I think we talked to some of the biggest thought leaders in the space, and they had this prediction of what the next 10 years would look like 10 years ago. And they were right. Like, they literally said computers will get to the level of computing power that they can replicate artificial intelligence by they said the beginning of 2023, and ChatGPT came out in November of 22. It was like, and we were talking like 2015. So I started building what I thought would be our niche and advantage to that. I didn't think we'd ever build the AI node, so to speak, the ChatGPT, because we don't have billions of dollars to invest, et cetera. We were just not in that position. I figured it'd be one of the big tech companies. And so there was also IBM Watson at the time, which showed me like that's probably what we'll be plugging into is something like that. And so I went, well, what's my advantage? Well, I have tons of knowledge and data around what's happening across a lot of brands because at this point, in the sort of lower and middle market, we're one of the best performing marketing agencies, and we've worked with over 5,000 companies. And so I was like, between our existing clients, clients that are coming, all our partners, we have access to a lot of knowledge. And so we'd get asked all the time, like, or argued with, hey, I think my Facebook isn't performing well enough. We need the returns to be higher. And I'd look at it and be like, you're in like the top 2 percentile. Like you're performing great. But one simple thing they don't have in marketing are benchmarks. What are the benchmarks? What is good objectively? And so we decided to start with that, which is collect all the data we could so we could actually create benchmarks. And then I went, okay, well, but with AI, I don't need to just serve up these benchmarks to a person that then has to go decipher what that means for them. We can have AI dive in, know the benchmarks, look at the individual company, and then spit out a report of like, hey, your click through rate on these Facebook ads are 20% below market. You should consider changing the copy or creative and start to actually create automated marketing strategy along with predictive analytics of if you make these changes, this is what the opportunity is here. So you know where to spend your time as a marketer. And so that's
Wow.
what we built, which is Hawke AI. And then I'd say the unforeseen benefit of what we built was we built it for ourselves so it can also look at a portfolio view. So we've actually one of the most common users are people that are managing multiple businesses, multiple locations, multiple lines of business that they want to see how they're all comparing and have a, the one of our customers said this, a God's eye view of their marketing suite and how they're performing.
And in terms of like the ideal user, when I looked on your site, it's pretty broad. It looks
Yeah.
like, if you're an entrepreneur, you can use it. If you're a marketer, if
Mhm.
you're another agency,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like kind of,
We have
is that how you would describe it?
Yeah, 100%. Because again, we built it for our own agency. So we have a lot of agencies using it. We also have a lot of funds using it, private equity funds, venture funds that want to monitor their portfolios. Again,
Mhm.
a lot of brands, a lot of entrepreneurs. The idea, or part of the idea originally, and part of the motivation was what can we give to someone that may not even be ready to hire us and wants to just know like what should I be doing, what's broken, how do I do this marketing thing. And so that's been how some people use it. It's We charge $250 a month right now for it. Like this is not something we're making egregious, and the idea is anyone can have access to it because again, accessibility has always been a part of our DNA.
And how do integrations work then? Because companies use a lot of different tools and things. Are you setting
Yep.
up the integrations on the back end, or do they
It's all easy
pay for
login.
the AI and then they can integrate on their own, or how does that work?
No, it's really we make it like the Facebook integration. Go log into your Facebook. It's all apps that are already existing. Like there's not really any custom dev work that goes into this. It's pretty
Okay.
straightforward. It's logging into all your accounts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And in terms of ad spend wise, I know from what my days working in big corporate in the past, a lot of times tools needed a minimum ad spend to be able to analyze and pick things up.
There is no minimum in that sense. You obviously want to have enough data to compare your data. If you spent $5 on Facebook and you plug it in, you might not have enough statistical significance to actually compare it to what other people are doing, but it's a
Mhm.
very, very, very low bar.
And you mentioned the benchmarking. I can just imagine a lot of people listening, you're like maybe salivating a little bit because it almost sounds a little too good to be true, right? Like all the days of when we had to pull everything manually and we're trying to take some guesses and it took a long time to do this research. With benchmarking data to compare results against others in the category, you mentioned how you're using all the data coming in from all the thousands and thousands of clients that you've worked with. Do you pull in any other third party data to be able to do those benchmarks?
The partner data that's been pulled in, all the people that use it, it's
Okay.
give to get to. And remember, to be clear, it's anonymized. So you're not seeing anyone's specific data. But, at this point, we haven't worked with 6,000 companies and we have over 6,000 companies in there.
So then let's hone in on moms
Yeah.
specifically in the mom market. So let's say I'm a brand that wants to get my products or services into the hands of more moms.
Mhm.
How could I use Hawk AI to help me do that?
Not going to help get it in the hands. It's going to help make sure you're
Mhm.
doing that efficiently and doing the right thing. So, like, you might go try a bunch of strategies. You can actually measure how am I performing against other things in my industry? Am I reaching? Is my messaging resonating? Am I getting a good click through rate? Am I getting good engagement? And when I say good engagement, the problem is most people it's a finger to a wind, or like I know most founders or CMOs still call like their friend at another company to see what numbers they're seeing, and that's the number they benchmark off of is one other company's number. And we all know if you talk about it how ridiculous that is, but that's how people do it. And so now it's like you actually know where you're doing things well and where you're not, and what's working and not compared to the market, so that you can understand, again, how well you're doing and where you need to do better.
And any great case studies or examples or clients that would be good to build this picture together for people?
Yeah, we've got a bunch. I can't name them yet because I don't think we have any permission there, but it's funny because it's sometimes so simple. And part of the motivation of building this came from a story. This was, I think, 2016. We had a client that we had grown for 2 years, had crushed it. Like, they were doing great. They went from like 30 grand a month to 15 million in revenue in 2 years. Like, really, really solid growth. And then their Facebook returns dropped off a cliff, and they dropped like to 1/8 of what they were getting, like month over month. All of a sudden, a huge drop in their performance. And I'm looking at it, and I got pulled in a couple of weeks after the Facebook team continued to try to optimize and fix Facebook and change the ads. And I go look at it and I go, your click through rate and your CPMs and your click through rate are better on Facebook than they've ever been. So that's not what's broken. What's broken is your site conversion. And you can blame Facebook and say it's driving the wrong traffic, but we haven't changed your targeting. So that doesn't make sense. So what'd you do to your website? And they're like, oh, we haven't done anything to our website. I'm like, no. Something changed. I'm looking at your website. Your conversion rate dropped to 1/8. Like, what did you change? I'm like, oh, we just made a couple updates, but it didn't do anything. And I went and looked. The site speed of their website had dropped to 1/8. So it was literally, instead of 1 second load times on mobile, it was 8 seconds. Like, every time you load a page, you wait 8 seconds. I'm like, yeah, do you imagine how many people are dropping off and not buying because of that? But because they didn't know, like, all they knew was performance was down and where they were looking. And without having a flagging system or benchmarks, they weren't able to go, oh, that's it. So it's just like that quick identification of, this is where I can do better, and quickly move.
Gosh, how powerful. Any other advice that you'd like to share that could help brands kind of better sell to more moms, or anything else that you'd want to mention about the AI tool?
I'm sure it goes without saying, and it's been said a lot, but like, we've done a lot in the mom space, and moms get their information from other moms. We have a book called The Hawke Method that's a best-selling marketing book. And we talk about the 3 pillars of marketing: awareness, nurturing, and trust. So awareness is like, how do you reach a new potential customer and let them know that you even exist? Nurturing is, what do you do with that person to keep in touch with them over the course of their buying cycle so that they actually purchase? People forget that all the time, that like, people do not purchase right when they see an advertisement. They take their time. The average sales cycle for an internet product is around a month. So during that month, what are you doing to keep in touch? But with child specific products, trust being the third pillar, third party validation, building a brand is the most critical part, because they're talking about their children and their babies. And you've got to really have a lot of validation. Snoo was great because you had Harvey Karp, who was my pediatrician actually when I was a kid, from Happiest Baby. He had so much credibility and had built so much of a brand and trust. And when we talk about that, if you don't have that yourself, you've got to borrow it. You've got to have that third-party validation, which comes in a lot of different forms, whether it's testimonials, reviews, influencers, celebrities, etc. You need to borrow trust from other places. And then over time, as you can deliver consistently, you can build your own trust and become a brand that's valuable too. But these are the things that you really need to think about when launching a product to that industry, because moms don't just go, oh, you say you're great for my kid, done, sold. Like, they want to know who else, who can I trust? Why can I trust this? They're protective, rightfully.
Yep, 100%. And I just want to reiterate what he just said too. Moms buy based on recommendations from other moms too. So really thinking about that sphere of influence that's around them and how you can communicate across those paths is really going to help establish those aspects and that trust ultimately, so that they'll say, yeah, okay, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to try this out, and let's go from here.
Anyone, feel free to reach out. I'm @/Erik Huberman on every social. You can reach out to me, e@hawkemedia.com, and Hawke's with an E on the end. So e@HAWKEmedia.com, or visit hawke.ai. Here to help.
All right, I'll make sure I put all those links into the show notes, everyone, so you can easily click on through and connect with Erik, as well as learn more about his incredible new Hawke AI tool. It's so good, right? So huge thanks to Erik for joining me and giving us a peek behind the curtains of how smart data and AI can dramatically simplify your marketing decisions. I especially loved Erik's reminder that moms don't just buy, they ask, who can I trust? And if you want their trust, you need a mix of strong brand strategy, third-party validation, and consistent results. And if today's episode got your wheels turning, would you do me a quick favor? Share this episode with one fellow marketer or founder who's trying to get their product into more moms' hands and other key customers of theirs. Let's keep learning and growing together. Until next week, God bless.